Good morning. I'm Pete Najarian. This is the take for Market Rebellion on this Tuesday morning and Monday, the start of the week. Really interesting the way the markets were absolutely going in polar opposite directions. But that sometimes is what the market is. And why was that happening? Because of the 10-year. And everybody was staring at the 10-year. Got back up towards that 1.5. It's the highest level since going back to June. All those storylines all being a big part of this whole thing. So what did we see? Well, the Dow was actually screaming to the upside. It got up about 250 points. That started to bleed off. Actually finished the day up about 70 points. On the other hand, you had a huge hit early on for the NASDAQ. It was down 200 plus points to the downside and then started to rally back a little bit, still finished down 70 points. But just interesting to see just all the movement that was going on within the NASDAQ versus the Dow, and then, of course, all the various sectors. And we'll get into that in just one second. But 36 million contracts trading. Again, a volume continues to be extremely strong in the derivatives world, the options world. You also take a look over at the volatility index. With all the movement we had there, volatility was anywhere between 17 and a little bit into the low 19s. Finished, however, just below 19 into the high 18s. So volatility, understandably, in that sort of a range, but we're not getting up and through 20. We'll get to today in just a second when it comes to that. But the other side of it is this. You take a look over at crude, and we've been talking about this for a long, long time, energy. And this explosive move that we had a year ago that was continuing did have that pullback like everything else that we've been talking about in the markets, that healthy pullback that you get before you make the next move. Well, that's exactly what we've been seeing out of energy. Yesterday, back up over 75. So interesting to watch that. And with that, you saw the energy space really having a really nice day to the upside. Those beta names, absolutely outrageous. You look at something like a Cabot Oil, which is one of the names we had for unusual option activity just a couple of weeks ago, absolutely exploding. And those options, when you have a stock that's moving 8% to the upside, and that's the stock side of it, you can only imagine the kind of movements that you're getting on the option side. And that's exactly what we were seeing, and it's incredible. Then you look at Diamondback, that was exploding. You look at Occidental, that was exploding. Financials had a very nice day. JP Morgan with this 10-year moving to the upside on a big tear to the upside, along with Goldman Sachs, along with Bank of America, all up more than 2%. So you get the idea. Financials, yep, check. Energy, yep, check. But you start to look over at technology and you see a struggle coming with Apple. You see a struggle with Google, a struggle with Salesforce, and you get the idea. That's what we were seeing, and that's obviously indicative of what you're looking at when you're looking at the NASDAQ. So some other standouts from yesterday that I thought made my list that I think it's important to know. Adobe getting a nice big hit to the downside yesterday. NVIDIA adding to that as well, and then throw in a Square. So you can see where a lot of the pressure is coming into the markets. But I'll tell you, the Chinese names will have one good day, and then it just seems as if it's 5 steps back. And that was yesterday's story. They had some movement to the upside, then they get smacked right in the cheek once again. And you look at everything, Trip.com, JD, you look at NetEase, you look at PDD, all of those, anywhere from 2 to almost 3.5% to the downside. So you just start to see that theme, and it's 1 step forward, as I say, 2 steps back, maybe even more. Nike followed up that 6% drop on Friday with another 1% drop. And we were talking about this name, and so many people were loving that name. But the interesting part is they were absolutely just putting on the blinders to what the PE levels were for a company that was somewhat decelerating for a variety of reasons. Obviously, a lot of that having to do with supply chain and everything else, but that is the reality. So you come into today, you see the 10-year up again, and you start looking at the markets and a little bit different. Now you see a little bit more working in concert. You see the Dow down 150 in the pre-market. NASDAQ, on the other hand, down 200 points in the pre-market. Matter of fact, it's just been kind of floating around, little bit of bumps here and there. But now, last I looked, we were down almost 330 points for the NASDAQ, 400 points for the Dow. So just seeing selling across just about everywhere that we look. Matter of fact, not finding a whole lot in the positive territory. You look at over at the energy space, energy started off nicely, up 1.5%, up 2%. I last looked, it was barely still green after being up 2% just 20 minutes before. So a lot going on in this first hour of trading. There's no doubt about that. Financials were green early. That started to turn. They were down more than 1%. Technology was down more than 2%. Semiconductors down 3%. You get the idea. That's what's really hitting, and especially the effects that you're seeing right now on the NASDAQ itself, that big move to the downside, 330 points on that instrument, that measure, versus the 400 points on the Dow. That's pretty significant. You look over at crude breaching 76, pulled back off of that, but getting up and through 76. So that pattern just continues. You see Bitcoin pulling back a little bit. Those beta energy names were absolutely ripping early on, obviously pulling back somewhat now. But then you look over anywhere in the technology or semiconductor space, and you are seeing a lot of blood in the streets. You see a name like, for instance, Applied Materials down 5%. Moderna in that category, just a very volatile mover, but it's been much more volatility moving to the downside of late in that name, down about 4.5% or more today. Those Chinese names, again, just absolutely getting slapped around. The majority of them anywhere between 3%, and then you start looking down 5%. So a lot of those names really getting a push to the downside as well. So I got two unusuals, and then I'll see you on the halftime report on CNBC today as well. So look forward to that. Bank of America, that one stood out because it was trading higher than it is now. So interesting. But because of the 10-year, obviously this makes a lot of sense. So you're looking at this name. It was trading just beneath 44. I know that it slipped a little bit. They were looking very, very short term, the October 1st. That's Friday. So the 44 strike call. So essentially buying exactly where the stock was, buying those calls. They were only going for 23 cents up to about 45 cents. But that was something that really did stand out. 8,000 of those were bought. Next was right back into energy. Now, we've seen a lot of ETFs in the energy space beginning to hit with some very large trades looking for even more upside. We'll see if that actually continues to play out. 30,000 of the XLE. Now, the XLE, the energy ETF, trading a little bit over 53 at the time. They're buying the October 54 call. So just buying just out of the money, almost an at-the-money call there. Those are going for about $1.25. So a lot of activity in energy and in financials, and we are seeing that across the board. And you're looking at all the sectors and what they may do going forward, and which names towards this last 3 months of the trading year. That's going to be something very, very interesting to see how this all plays out. We know where crude's going. We see this pattern in the past that we've seen in the 10-year. So there are some leadership for the roadmap, but we'll see if that continues as well. Folks, look forward to seeing you at noon today. Have a great day of trading.